Minister continues his tour of the islands affected by Sandy.
It needs obviously a seawall.
Electricity restoration efforts still underway.
As we speak. In fact, we've been going around the clock 24/7.
Another murder here in the capital, plus there's still work to be done from last year's hurricane.
We have 20 homes under construction.
I'm Nikki DeVoe, and this is NB12 Weekend. NB12 Weekend. Thanks for spending your Sunday evening with us. Prime Minister Perry Christie and assessment teams were back on the ground in hurricane-impacted areas of the country today as the government tries to assess what kind of assistance those communities need. He traveled to Grand Bahama today, but the assessment started yesterday in Long Island and Cat Island. Arcandia Dames traveled with the team and has this report.
At their first opportunity, assessment teams were on the ground in Family Islands today, getting a first-hand look at the damage caused by Hurricane Sandy over the last couple days. Here in Long Island, the major concern appears to be crop damage, but Prime Minister Christie says it's much too soon to say exactly the sort of assistance these communities will need. The Prime Minister and members of the assessment team walked across a field owned by Long Island farmer Scofield Miller. The storm ravaged his crops, which he said had only recently recovered from Hurricane Irene last year. Plantains, banana trees, and other crops were all wiped out when the storm roared through on Thursday. Significant crop damage was reported across Long Island in Sandy's wake.
Well, I was hoping, thank God it's you all. Because, you know, from Hurricane Lily and Hurricane Irene, my farm was like this and I haven't received anything.
But can I assure you that the government, my ministry,
I know it's you,
is going to come in early next week, make a formal assessment of the damage and the loss.
Right.
And you can be assured that we will offer some financial assistance to you. I trust that we will be able to meet most of your needs, but having regard to the island-wide devastation,
well, I understand.
We might not be able to do everything.
It's not only me one. You got the whole Bahamas to deal with.
All along the Long Island coast, the damage from the storm surge was apparent. The already stressed road took a pounding and some structures were left soaked by the flooding. Prime Minister Christie said the government and the National Emergency Management Agency will have to do a better job at identifying vulnerable areas in Family Island communities.
People can tell you stories of where they used to picnic and they show the water and say, it's out there now, the water has taken it over. And so when we got to this site here, the question was, it needs obviously a seawall because you can see how low it is here. And you can see when a hurricane or storm coming from this direction goes in. And even though there's higher land here. And so as we move around, we're identifying areas that are vulnerable areas.
Long Island Administrator Therese Bootle Bethel said residents were grateful to escape the full impact of Hurricane Sandy.
The farmers didn't fare well because of the heavy downpour, but overall I think Long Island fared well, and it's just the issue of flooding.
After leaving Long Island, the Prime Minister and his team headed to nearby Cat Island, where residents told similar stories. Both islands are still partially without power, water, and phone services, but there was no major destruction to report.
We do have a number of persons who've complained about shingle loss and some water in their homes, mostly through crevices, windows, doors. But we did not have, even though we had the full intensity of the storm, we did not have any major structural damage. With the exception of just one small resort in Orange Creek, everybody's roofs stayed on. And generally they were discomforted, but they were not put out of any particular livelihood as a result of the storm. So we should recover fairly quickly once resources are available. I've spoken to the acting superintendent of schools, and he's done a check, and I have his report. It appears that most of the schools also survived fairly well.
Along the Cat Island coast, Sandy's aftermath was still evident as portions of the road were near impassable. Prime Minister Christie said the government will now consider whether any exigency orders to waive customs duties for rebuilding efforts will become necessary.
The Financial Secretary discussed that last evening with me. He is prepared to make those recommendations, but it will depend really on the need. We have not had any sort of acute need, at least to what we have seen. We go to other islands to see what the overall assessment is, but at the end of the process, there's a dollar figure that we're going to have to find. Hopefully not necessarily all one time, that we're able to, on an incremental basis, restore the islands to where they ought to be.
Officials say it will take probably quite a few more days before they get a more complete picture of the damage caused by Hurricane Sandy in the Bahamas. Prime Minister Christie says he intends to make a full report on the storm's impact when the House of Assembly meets again on Thursday. Reporting from NOSA's Cat Island for NB12, I'm Candy Adames.
More than 90% of BEC customers in New Providence have had their power restored, thanks to a team of 87 employees who were on the ground assessing the damage and making the necessary repairs over the past few days. Today, the senior executive team heading the restoration efforts talked about the areas that are still without electricity. It is expected that power will be restored to all New Providence customers by Tuesday, the latest. Bahamas Electricity Corporation General Manager Kevin Baston.
We were at 90%. Mr. Chairman, we are in fact at 97% now. 97%. It's just a number of areas throughout the country. So there are little pockets throughout New Providence that are presently off. And so we have teams dispatched. For example, in the Seabreeze area, in the Imperial Park area, the Eastern Road area, Coconut Grove area. We have teams at present in all of those areas working.
BEC Chairman Leslie Miller says the main complaint they're now receiving is that some homes are without power, but their neighbors have electricity. They also have challenges with residents who do not want their trees cut.
Because they are hooked up on different lines in the same area. And that's one of the problems that we hear, the cry that we hear. Okay, so you just need to be aware of that. The distribution network is made up of many circuits that feed into a single community. Therefore, there's the likelihood that a problem exists on one circuit and not on the other, thus affecting the supply to some homes and businesses.
Now, electricity should be restored to all of the family islands by the end of the week. Miller gave a rundown of the progress so far.
In Abaco, 80% of electricity is restored. In the Abaco Keys, Grand Turtle Key, 85% is restored. An assessment is remaining on the other keys associated with Abaco. In Auckland's, 100%. In Andros, 100% restoration. In Bimini, 100% restoration. Cat Island, where we had some problems there, 60%, but that's being dealt with now. Crooked Island, 100%. In Eleuthera, 60%. The Exumas, 100% is restored. In Great Harbor Key, 80%. In Anagua, 100%. Long Key, 100%. Long Island, approximately 85%. And Long Island was hit pretty hard also. Ragged Island, we had 90%. Rum Key, 100%. San Salvador, 100%.
According to Assistant General Manager of the Family Islands, Mark Hudson, Long Island was the most affected by Sandy.
The type of damage in Long Island, there was minor damage to the station, some of the station cladding. But in the islands, as in New Providence, most of the damage is normally related to our distribution system, particularly the overhead lines that you would see driving along the roads.
Miller commended BEC for its quick response and said Bahamians should do the same. International reports say that 600,000 residents in the east coast of the United States could be without power for weeks. Customers without power are asked to call BEC and report it. Well, BEC officials also encouraging Bahamians to be patient, as restoring electricity is a very difficult and dangerous job. In fact, a BEC employee stationed in Exuma is currently being treated at the Princess Margaret Hospital after he was injured on the job around 10 this morning. Baisden says he was injured after making contact with a live power line during the restoration process.
Safety is of utmost importance, and we have continually stressed that throughout the last few days. I also want to join the chairman and express on behalf of our management team the regret that one of our employees was injured. As indicated, we are having him airlifted here. He is presently in good spirits, but he did suffer some burns to his arm and his leg.
That matter is being investigated. Members of the public are being encouraged to stay away from fallen power lines and make no attempts to remove anything from overhead power lines. Meantime, employees at the Bahamas Telecommunications Company working hard to make the necessary repairs to the network. Today, teams left for Exuma, Eleuthera, Cat Island, Rum Cay, and Sandy Point, Abaco. Tomorrow, teams will travel to Andros and mainland Abaco. Dale Knowles, VP of Technical Network Transformation, says employees are working hard in the command center and out in the field to ensure that all customers are up and running as soon as possible.
Doesn't seem to be anything glaring that has been damaged, but the majority of our outages has been as a result of power being lost to the equipment, whether it's commercial power and then our extended backup services being exhausted, and then we just have the equipment shut down.
Knowles also explained that damage is due to commercial power outages and infrastructure. Officials say so far Abaco's network appears to have received the most damage. However, reports are still coming in from Grand Bahama, which also appears to have sustained significant damage. BTC is hoping to get there this Tuesday. Now, any BTC customers experiencing problems with their service are asked to call the call center.